Welcome to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I am Tammi Mack on Fox Soul. It's Friday, and the business of being black is the Democrats' response to the overturning of Roe versus Wade, the former White House aide who dropped a bombshell about Donald Trump during the January 6th hearing, and what R. Kelly fans and victims are saying about his prison sentence, and which NBA championship winner is set to host the Espys. Get ready for another round of the political and trending highlights of the week. Please welcome my Friday co-host, activist, and radio personality, Dominique DePrima. Hi, Dominique.
Hi, Tammy.
Political analyst, Ed Sanders is here.
Happy 4th of July weekend.
Comedian and filmmaker Alicia Cooper on deck. Hi, Lily.
Hey, Tammy.
And the president and founder of Oleka Management Consulting, Dr. OJ Oleka. Hi,
hey,
Dr. Oleka.
Hey, Tammi Mack. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, everyone. Let's get down to the business of being black. On Friday, June 24th, the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, allowing each state to determine access to abortion. Many politicians were outraged about the ruling, including House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Check this out.
There's no point in saying good morning, because it certainly is not one. Today, the Republican-controlled Supreme Court has achieved their dark, extreme goal of ripping away a woman's right to make their own reproductive health decisions. Because of Donald Trump, Mitch McConnell, and the Republican Party, their supermajority in the Supreme Court, American women today have less freedom than their mothers. It's such a contradiction. Yesterday, the states cannot make laws governing the constitutional right to bear arms. And today, they're saying the exact reverse. The hypocrisy is raging, but the harm is endless.
I'm interested in knowing what it's really about, but, everybody was all up in arms. I should have a choice to wear a mask and a choice not to wear a mask. I should have a choice to take a vaccine or a choice not to take a vaccine. Well, here we go. What are your thoughts about what Nancy Pelosi says? She says it's hypocritical. I'd have to agree with that, Ed.
Me too. I listen. I think that was probably the clearest statement on the issue that I've seen. She gets right to the point of what's happened here. A good number of us really don't remember pre-Roe v. Wade with the type of health epidemic that was present, where you had women seeking abortions in sites that weren't healthy. We haven't addressed the issue of the need, right? So the need for an abortion is still there. What this court has done is put this back on states. What we're ultimately going to have is this patchwork network of red state, blue state, and in the end game, it's going to require Congress and a president to pass some legislation. But with this stalemate of a government that we're in, that's not likely anytime soon.
It actually blows my mind because I honestly thought it was settled law. I thought that was truth. Apparently that was fact. Dr. Oleka?
Well, I think first it's important to understand that what the Dobbs decision did, as was pointed out, was send this issue back to state governments to determine, based on what their state legislatures say, which is based on what the people want them to do on this particular issue of abortion. I think this is obviously a very controversial issue from the standpoint of what you believe. If you believe that life begins at some point before birth, then this is quite an easy question for you with regard to how you might treat abortion in most instances. Obviously, where there is a point of contention is the exemptions that states are going to be looking at. Rape, incest, the time frame as it will come out. But again, I don't think there is a level of hypocrisy here with the different Supreme Court decisions with regard to gun laws. The Second Amendment is pretty explicit in mentioning guns, whereas the Constitution does not explicitly mention abortion. The Roe case got there through this conversation of privacy and what a right to privacy meant. If you even read the Roe decision, the justices themselves are unclear if it's in the Ninth Amendment, if it's in the 14th Amendment. That should be pretty important when you're making these types of decisions. So now the people will get to decide, and I think we're going to find out exactly what people believe on this issue state by state, which is the right decision.
Dominique?
Well, I think part of the hypocrisy that Nancy Pelosi and others have pointed out is that conservatives want to say it's about states' rights. When it's convenient for them, they give the states the right to choose. When it's not convenient for them, they want to override a state jurisdiction, as they do with cannabis. I do think that what Dr. Oleka says, it's true. Everyone has different beliefs, but your spiritual, religious, or personal beliefs are just that. They should not be the rule of the land. This is a secular democracy, not a theocracy. We are not the Taliban, although at the rate we're moving, we could be the new American Taliban. This is not Iran, where our personal beliefs and religious choices dictate the law of the land. And in fact, it's not true that this is what the people want, because the overwhelming majority of Americans think that a woman should have a right to make a choice. That's between her and her doctor, her and her church. I would also point out that it's disingenuous to say that this will be left up to the states, because the minute we get a Republican president and Republican control of Congress, they will enact a national ban. They have not been at all secretive about that. And so we could see that coming as soon as 2024, where abortion or a woman's right to choose will be eliminated in all 50 states and punishable as a crime.
That's just literally not true. This is an untruth that you stated, and let me break down each point. First of all, there is no one that is suggesting that if Republicans take the Senate, take the House, and take the presidency, that there will be an abortion ban. You have Republican sitting senators who say that they would not vote for such a thing. The votes just simply aren't there. That's the first point. The second point, you said that a person's individual personal belief on an issue shouldn't matter. That's literally how everyone votes on every topic.
I didn't say it shouldn't matter. I said that your personal religious beliefs should not be the law of the land.
If I'm an individual,
of course they matter.
For a member of my state legislature, as in the individuals who will be voting on these laws, yes, I'm going to vote based on how I feel personally, religiously, or otherwise about an issue. That's the second point. And the
so
third
you believe
point,
your religion should be the law of the land? That you believe that your religious beliefs should be the law of the land?
If an individual,
you don't believe in separation of church and state. Well, neither does the Supreme Court.
Let me repeat my statement here. If an individual is making a choice on who they vote for, that has nothing to do with the law of the land. That is who they vote for and how they vote. That's how you get the members of the General Assembly of the state legislature in each state. Let me make this third point. This idea that abortion at any point during the pregnancy, for whatever reason, is popular is not true. When you actually look at
no one said that. We're talking about existing law, Dr. Oleka. Please don't put words in my mouth. No, but don't misrepresent what I say.
It'd be fantastic if I could make the point without an interruption. This idea
but don't lie about what I've said.
Popular. This idea that abortion is very popular at any point and any time is just
no one said that.
When you break down the crosstabs of how people think and they vote and how they answer this question, it is popular that people believe that women should have a right to choose up to a certain point. When you look at 14 weeks for abortion at any point is unpopular, quite so, with the American people. This was a Pew Research study that was done in March of this year. The Dobbs case, which was based on Mississippi, banned abortion at 15 weeks. So I think we've got to understand that, again, this point is very nuanced. And when you say that people support a women's right to choose, that that's a popular thing, that has its limits. And we're going to see what those limits are in each state across the country.
Dr. Oleka, you said that Dominique's position is false when it comes to Republicans banning abortion nationally. But yes, we honestly, we all thought that the Supreme Court believed that Roe versus Wade was settled law. Turns out that is not what they believed at all.
Because they lied about it. That's why we believed it.
Well, they didn't lie about it. This is what happened. Number one, you have the candidates for the Supreme Court, while they were actually being nominated, they were asked questions all the time about any particular issue that had precedent. They were asked about stare decisis, this idea that if something has been determined by the courts, how much should that matter? And they all said precedents do matter when making decisions.
And they said Roe v. Wade is settled law, and they said it under oath, so they lied.
No one said that Roe v. Wade was settled law.
Yes,
Dominique, if we're talking about what people said and didn't say, I would encourage you to go back and watch.
They never said that it was settled law, but they certainly made strong implications that it was the law. And can easily be interpreted as settled law. I do believe the last justice actually said settled law.
No, what was said by each justice was that it was incredibly important to look at precedent and give it the value that it deserves, to look at stare decisis and give it the value that
Wow,
it
you're
deserves.
just going to
Those things are
prevaricate.
true. But the
Okay.
idea that just because a law is a law and the court ruled it a certain way that it can never be overturned is not true. And it's something as Black folks we should be happy about, because Plessy versus Ferguson was overturned. Plessy, of course, was the rule that made segregation legal across the land. Brown v. Board overturned that. If we're to believe that precedent always matters and stare decisis always matters in the sense that just because a court settled it, it should stay that way, then segregation would still be the law of the land. Courts make different
this is
decisions
important
over
because
time.
this is a transformative case here. I mean, in the last 100 years from the Warren Court forward, they've used this theory of privacy to protect different rights, whether we're talking about abortion to recently the ability for same-sex couples to marry. All of that is sort of driven from the same theory. And the attack on Roe v. Wade just signals that what this court is going to try to do is undo all of the progress that's been made over the last
Alicia, let me
century.
get you in real quick.
Yeah, I feel like I don't understand how what the woman down the street from me does with her body is any of my business. And if we're going to say things that they said were once settled law and we're going to change it, then I think that we should change the fact that Supreme Court justices are on the bench for a lifetime. Since we're rolling stuff back, let's roll that back.
I'm waiting on that
ridiculous.
one myself. I'm waiting on term limits. We'll be right back on Business of Being Black. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I'm Tammi Mack, and the Business of Being Black today is a recap of the entire week, political and trending topics. Let's go. I do want to say this, Dr. Oleka, real quick, because a couple of Republicans were highly upset that this happened in the Supreme Court, and they were upset because a few of those justices said that it was settled law, and they voted on them based on that. Susan Collins being one of them, highly upset at Brett Kavanaugh for saying to her in her office that it was settled law. So they have said it in some form or fashion. And as far as Brett Kavanaugh, he said the word to Susan Collins. So I just wanted to make that adjustment there. But I don't want to get off this topic. I want to stay on it a little bit here. We got another clip here that I want us to get to. So if we can get to our next clip so we can continue the conversation, because many people are upset by how the Democratic Party responded to that ruling. Take a look at what pro-abortion rights activist Zoe Warren had to say about it.
So I received a text message from Joe Biden's campaign yesterday saying that the Supreme Court had overturned Roe versus Wade and that it was my responsibility to then rush $15 to the Democratic National Party. And I thought that was absolutely outrageous because my rights should not be a fundraising point for that.
Yeah, not a good look for the Democrats. They keep the optics that they're putting out is it's a little side-eye to me. It's a little side-eye. I just made that up. I just made that up. So that's why. What policies could the Biden administration enact to ensure that women retain their right to abortion without risking new court challenges? What do you think, Alicia?
What policies can they enact?
You can respond to you can respond to the activist Zoe Warren.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what she was saying. Like, our rights shouldn't have a dollar amount attached to it. I didn't even see that they were asking for that. The problem with the Democrats is we are not as gangster as the Republicans. The Republicans go all in. They don't care what laws they have to break. They don't care what words they have to use to get what they want. They will lie. The Democrats are trying to be too above board all the time. And until we get just as down and dirty as they are, we're going to stay losing. And that's exactly what's happening right now. We are losing. And the problem for me with the Supreme Court is it was never supposed to be partisan. When Trump sat there and said he was putting them on the court to be partisan, that should have been some sort of deal breaker right there. And instead of having black robes, they should have red robes and blue robes, because we already know that this is a problem. And this is why they should have term limits now, because it is partisan.
The Supreme Court is now partisan. I mean, we clearly know who's going to vote for what. It's just not a good look, and it's not what it was meant to be, Dominique.
Well, I mean, it will be a little harder to put term limits because you would need a constitutional amendment. Our Congress is being obstructed by craven conservative obstructionists. I don't see that changing until we get proportional.
But we could add more Supreme Court justices.
We can add more justices. But again, we would have to make an exception to the filibuster or get rid of the filibuster. And I just don't know that the Biden administration is willing to do that. I do think that every politician, left and right, raises money off everything. It is a little cynical and a little crass, but they do it. Republicans do it too. Look at the fact that our former president raised $250 million for an organization that never existed, which, by the way, he should be prosecuted for fraud in that instance. It's what politicians do. But I do think the Democrats need to be more assertive and more committed in getting the results that we, the voters, asked for.
Dominique, I think that's the first time you've ever pushed the Democrats a little bit.
You don't listen to my talk show, but that's probably because you're on the air at the time. I push the Democrats all the time. I just don't like when people tell tall tales and try to use it to advance a political agenda by saying things that aren't true about Republicans and Democrats.
Ed, what you got?
That's about the activists. I mean, I hate being like the old man commenting about a young person's activism, but right. But I mean, let's be clear. I think she's being a little naive about the process. Supreme Court justices are nominated by the Senate and confirmed, or nominated by the president, confirmed by the Senate. That's a political process, and in order to get the type of Senate that you need to put the type of Supreme Court justices that you'd like to see on the court, takes politics, and politics takes money. And so, I mean, a $15 ask to the party is nothing. She really should have been like, I got to put 10 times that, put $150. If she were out on the streets protesting with the energy about the issue, $15
but I think the problem is that we found this new way of making money and fundraising, which is just simply to gank somebody's phone number and text them all day, or grab their email and email them every 5 seconds, right? So now that exists, we have to wonder, you asking for this money all the time, but what are you doing? Our democracy is being destroyed in front of our faces, and you want me to give you more money? Ask me for more money when you've done something that benefited me as my representative.
You're nailing it. I mean, that's the conversation we have every day and every week on this show, right? Is are things being done for our community? But it's a constant fight. I mean, let's not portray this as though this is a one-off. This is a consistent fight to make this world the way we want it, to make this country the way we'd like to see it. Believe you me, the conservatives are raising money left and right. They'll probably take this show and raise $15 from all their donor bases on it. Right, OJ?
Well, I only have one question. In the words of Brandy, I want to be down. Dr. Oleka?
Well, I mean, look, obviously I have a different perspective in terms of the outcome, but I mean, my colleagues in this are right in the sense that this is a political process. Now, I wouldn't agree with changing the rules. I don't think you need to change the Supreme Court and add people to it. I think you just need to win elections. But there is something that I think is important that I've always said about
it's too late to win elections. We've got this Supreme Court. This is what I was thinking about the other day. We on this panel have this Supreme Court for the rest of our lives.
Well, maybe
somebody gets struck by lightning. And the fact is, the Supreme Court has not been 9 all along. It's been different numbers at different times. So we've changed it before. Why not change it again? The reason OJ says don't change it now is because it upholds his activist, political, conservative agenda.
Or views, Dominique, or views.
Well, the difference that I was going to say between Democrats and Republicans, Democrats win elections by cobbling together people who have like-minded interests, whereas Republicans cobble people together and win elections with people who have like-minded beliefs. The difference between interest and beliefs. Well, the difference between interest and beliefs is that you can find a pro-union, pro-life Democrat to vote for in the South so that you can have a pro-union Congress. But then when you have an issue like this, then people are split. And here's where that came up, where this is important and why I think people are upset with the Democrats. Go back and look at candidate Barack Obama talking about a bill that would codify Roe v. Wade. When he was running in 2007, he said, this is a top priority of mine. That's what he said. And then when he became president in 2009, he said, well, this is no longer a top priority. Why? Because he had to cobble together people who had like-minded interests, and all of a sudden, when he had to govern with that group, it was nearly impossible. Democrats had 60 votes at the time. They could have done it. They could have overrun a filibuster and codified Roe, and they didn't. And so now, when you have Democrats saying, give me money to do what you want, I think a lot of Democrats are upset that it hasn't been done in the past. That's an issue for them, not one that I'm too keen to help them out in figuring out.
Is that
wrong,
true, Dominique? I'm sorry, Ed, go ahead.
I'm going to say OJ's not wrong, and the belief that I think that he's outlining, and what we have to be more forthright in saying is really sort of this concept of state rights, and behind that, what it really is like this liberty of this sense of liberty. It's that same sense that gave them the notion that they can enslave Africans. It's the same sense and belief that allows them to think that they can pollute our rivers and oceans for any sort of economic gain. All of the priorities and policies that they put forward are sort of founded in this belief system of theirs. And that's what we're fighting against.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go back to in a time machine, back to when President Barack Obama was elected, we were in the Great Recession, the Bush Depression, the economic crash. And so he had a few things on his plate. And also, it was widely believed at that time by Republicans and Democrats that Roe was settled law. So, yeah, maybe he wanted to get, the Affordable Care Act through, because actually healthcare bills are is the leading cause of bankruptcy among American families.
Let's take a quick break.
He wanted to save the economy. Got it.
Thank you for watching Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. Listen, we pride ourselves on uplifting and educating our community and those who wish to be allies with knowledge, expertise, and personal experiences through our panel discussions. My personal experience in getting to the money is making sure my credit score is tight and right. So I wait 3 weeks before making a major purchase. What's the 3-week rule? Wait 3 weeks to buy that new car. Wait 3 weeks to refi your home mortgage, and wait 3 weeks to finance any major purchase. Lately, I've been waiting 3 weeks just to buy groceries, y'all. But I found that there is something to the wait, especially if you're like me and watch your credit score like a hawk. Oh, I be watching, y'all. I see your credit score up, down, up, down. I be watching every week. But the 3-week rule, that's the real business. Why 3 weeks? Because that's how fast the average ScoreMaster user takes to boost his or her credit score by an average of 61 points. And listen, 61 points added to your credit score, who can save you tens of thousands on everything we finance. ScoreMaster technology was developed by credit data scientists to boost your credit score higher and faster than you thought possible. ScoreMaster is so easy. It takes about a minute to get started, right? Ooh, that's easy. And you don't have to wait months for your best credit score. Try ScoreMaster today and see how many plus points you can add to your credit score. Go to scoremaster.com/BOBB. That's scoremaster.com/BOBB. Again, scoremaster.com/BOBB. Listen, I don't want nobody telling me what to buy and how to buy and when to buy it. That's why I'm consistently tracking my credit. You should track and get yours up too with scoremaster.com. And that's the real business of being Black with Tammi Mack. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I'm Tammi Mack on Fox Soul, and the Business of Being Black today is the trending and political highlights of the week. Please welcome my co-host, activist, and radio personality, Dominique DePrima, political analyst, Ed Sanders, comedian and filmmaker, Alicia Cooper, and the president and founder of Oleka Management Consulting, Dr. O.J. Oleka. Alicia, let's talk about this January 6th committee hearing, girlfriend. On Tuesday, during the January 6th hearing, former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson dropped a bombshell during her testimony. She claims that former President Trump knew people in the crowd were armed when he instructed his supporters to march to the Capitol. Here's video of her testimony.
I was part of a conversation. I was in the vicinity of a conversation where I overheard the president say something to the effect of, I don't effing care that they have weapons. They're not here to hurt me. Take the effing mags away. Let my people in. They can march to the Capitol from here. Let the people in. Take the effing mags away.
Ooh, child. I know President Trump, former President Trump, can't stand her. Could Hutchinson's testimony sway legal experts and the conservative media? And is Donald Trump close to being prosecuted for his alleged actions? Can I just say no, and no?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be the typical stuff. Exactly. No. It's the typical stuff. Everybody around him is going down and he's not. It's the typical stuff that's always been happening. But what people need to remember is this woman is a Republican. The people that are telling you the insider stuff about him were on his team. And we're not surprised that he knew it when he said, they're not here to hurt me. That's a malignant narcissist at his finest. Everything is about them. They're not here to hurt me. Well, who were they going to hurt? Was it Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Mike Pence? So you didn't care about any of them because they weren't there to hurt you? You know, something needs to be done. And anybody considering re-electing this man is a hot fool just like him. You know, and they said the man that grabbed the steering wheel. Let me tell you something. This is why Donald Trump don't hire black people in Secret Service, because we'd have chopped him right in the center of his head. When they got out that car that looked like Ike and Tina, and what's love got to do with it? Because they would have been battling. You know, you almost killing somebody yanking wheels. That is a crazy man. This person is completely unhinged, and I believe every word she said. The problem is that the guy that she was quoting from the text messages now works for Donald Trump, and he's saying that what she said is not true. You know, so he's a proven liar. That's why he works for Donald Trump. They're all the same. But I don't see anything happening to Trump. But I do see stuff happening to people around him, which is what normally happens.
I see something possibly happening to Hutchinson too. I'm sure that people are going in deep to find out about her past, her history, to bring out who all she had sex with. I mean, I can just imagine what is the scrutiny that they are looking for to scrutinize this young woman who decided to speak to the hands of justice. And, you know, I hear you when you say, if he had a black Secret Service, but he's the president of the United States, Alicia, it was funny, but I don't care what color the Secret Service was. They wasn't fit to choke the president of the United States. Go ahead, Dr. Oleka.
but they said he grabbed a man up around his neck. That is assault.
Yeah.
I we don't work too well like that.
And I want to say to that, if that's the case, it makes Donald Trump look better to his base. That's the kind of president they want. That's the kind of president they voted for. That is who they knew Donald Trump to be in the beginning. So it just magnifies and glorifies who he is and allows his base to know that he's got their back no matter what. For them to know that he was headed that way and was instructed not to go, it just seems like that's my president. He was fighting for us. So I don't think that anything that could be said in that hearing will affect that. Dr. Oleka.
Well, there are a few key points here always to understand. This witness came before the committee and we played the clip. What she said was, I was in a conversation with, and then she said, I was in the vicinity of a conversation that was happening. And then she said, I think the president said something to the effect of. Now, you mentioned, will this change legal experts' opinion? I don't think when you say things like, I was in the conversation. Oh, wait, actually, I was just near the conversation. I think the president said something like, legal experts aren't going to hear that language and say, well, this is definitive evidence. Of course, Congress will and the media will, because they're in a different game than what legal experts are in the game for. Also, if to bring up what Alicia said, her testimony with regard to she being told that the president lunged at a member of Secret Service to turn the wheel, well, then the legal experts have to hear from those people. And as you pointed out, right now, they're saying that that's not true. That's what the reports are. They're willing to comply with the committee. So this type of thing from a legal expert perspective, you have to hear from the people who were considered to be involved in the case. That in this instance are the members of the Secret Service. So I think we're going to hear from them. They said they would testify. So if they don't corroborate that story, if they say it's not true under oath, sure, then you can believe like Alicia believes, and then anybody that supports President Trump is a liar. That's not a legal qualification. So what the legal experts will have to say is, this is not usable for any prosecutorial type of decision making. Will conservative media change their opinion? No.
Well, listen, I got my law degree and am a proud graduate of Judge Judy University. And Judge Judy always says, If it's hearsay, you can't bring it up in the courts. So, Dr. Oleka, there's something to be said about that. But I want to ask you specifically, because a lot of those Republicans who testified against Trump said that they would still vote for him. Would you still vote for him if he ran, Dr. Oleka?
I'm not certain that he's going to. I think we're going to have a lot of different candidates who could run. Certainly Ron DeSantis in Florida, the governor out there, is an interesting choice. The vice president will run. We will see a lot of these instances.
Pence is going to run?
He's looking at it, absolutely. He's had an interest in being president of the United States for a long time, since he was a member of Congress. So there are going to be a number of people who will throw their name out there. So we'll see.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see him rally the troops that wanted to hang him.
That will certainly be a part of the Republican electorate who will not support Mike Pence for president.
Dominique?
Yeah, I've actually interviewed a number of lawyers about this, and there's varying opinions, but what I am hearing universally is that these hearings, and particularly this most recent testimony, do actually give the former president, and some of his inner circle significant criminal exposure. For an aide, a top staffer, to be in the vicinity of a conversation and not be in it is not at all unusual. It's kind of their job to stand around and staff the president, staff the chief of staff. I think that, of course, Dr. O.J. Oleka, who may be running himself for president, is going to downplay the importance of this. But let's keep in mind, and this is something that hasn't gotten a lot of attention, that Trump political action committees are paying for the legal defense and lawyers for many of these witnesses that are testifying before the committee. Let that sink in. If someone's paying your legal fees, are you going to rat them out? Are you going to portray them in a bad light? It's not illegal, but it raises some ethical challenges. And that is something that we really need to look at, because it is a form of obstruction of justice, even though it's not illegal.
So how do you feel about what Hutchinson said?
And Dr.
Dominique?
Well, Hutchinson, I think she was a very credible witness. I think she was very believable. And she's one of the people that was provided a lawyer by Trump allies, that they were paying for her lawyer. She fired that lawyer and got a new attorney. And that's when she decided to testify again. And that is why the president is saying she's changed her story, which actually is very, very incriminating for him, because what it implies is that as long as they have his lawyers, they'll tell the right story. But as soon as they get a different lawyer, they'll tell a story that's not flattering to him.
That's
witness tampering.
Right, Alicia?
Yeah, witness tampering. But I have a question for Dr. Oleka. You said that the Republicans wouldn't support Mike Pence. And Mike Pence voted with Donald Trump almost lockstep.
Well, he said those Republicans he was referring specifically to the Republicans that attacked the Capitol. That
right. Well, yeah, but also but Republicans, period, that won't support a man who voted in lockstep with Donald Trump, just like Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney voted in lockstep with Donald Trump. So, but because these two refuse to do something illegal, now the party is turning on the two of them. So that doesn't bother you, Dr. Oleka, or does it bother you?
I think that if you are a registered Republican and you stormed the Capitol in anger that the president was not reelected, no, I don't think you're going to vote for Mike Pence. That's the specific group I was talking about. If the options in 2024 November are Mike Pence and Joe Biden, I think Mike Pence wins that election, and Republicans overwhelmingly support him in that effort.
Are you the VP on that ticket?
Well, Dominique, this is twice now that you promoted a national candidacy. I love you, my sister, but I really don't need a progressive advocate talking about me as a good Republican. It's not going to help me win any votes.
Let me do it some more. OJ for president.
I don't know. I ride the line, Dr. Oleka. You could probably sway me. Ed, what do you feel about Hutchinson?
Going into the January 6th committee, I had been skeptical. I think this past week changed my mind. I've seen, specifically Hutchinson's testimony. I agree with Dominique. She's highly credible. But what this testimony calls for is that you're not hearing from. You're not hearing from the president's chief of staff. You're not hearing directly from the vice president. You're not hearing directly from the president.
Good point.
that lack of transparency on this fundamental question, and this is a really simple question, right? Did the president of the United States try to subvert the peaceful transition of power? And for high-ranking officials to not step forward and testify is really despicable. That lack of transparency is an issue. And what Hutchinson did, she just blew the roof off of it, so that, look, now you're looking at Meadows, now you're looking at everybody else. You need to come forward, and you better be credible, and you better tell the truth.
The fact that there are Republicans that won't come forward suggests that something is afoot.
Of course. And because your silence is telling everyone everything. And now when they speak, I want to see them on the live. That you thought was, if there was something that you actually thought would help the president, that you voted for, that you stood by, you would come on to the committee and speak out loud and proud about those things. So the fact that there are so many that are saying absolutely nothing at this hearing is very telling.
Well, I don't think that's entirely fair, Tammy Mack. And again, this is just purely conjecture. Mm-hmm. But we know how these things are highly politicized. And you just mentioned this lady, Hutchinson, probably are going to have people who are supporters of the former president coming after her professional career. There are a lot of people who just wanted to work in the White House. And so they worked in the White House, they had prominent positions or moved their way up, who just have no interest in getting involved in this particular issue because it's going to be politicized. They could have a truthful story to tell, sure, but they just want nothing to do with it. They want to move on with their lives. Secondarily, there are people who still have political interests. And if you put them in front of a committee that's got mostly Democrats, who knows what that scope is in terms of the questions that they could ask? Sure, most of them could be asked about January 6th. Some of them could be asked about something else that they just don't want to answer, that have nothing to do with that particular day, those incidents. Again, I'm not covering for anyone in particular. I'm just saying there are other reasons why people might not participate.
Yeah, that's very cute, Dr. Oleka. But the truth don't need no help. The truth is the truth. And if you stand on the truth, and if you stand on what's right, then there's nothing to fear.
What I'm saying is that there's the scope. Again, I'm not disagreeing with you about the importance of the truth. I am not disagreeing about that at all. But with truth comes consequence. There is a price. And I'm saying if you were what I'm saying is, if I took an oath to hold up constitutional values of this country, the America, the greatest country on the face of the earth that we live in, and I took an oath to protect it, to make sure its constitutional values stick, then I'm going down with the truth.
Exactly. And I'm not going to be a part of a party where if I tell the truth, my family and my life is at risk and in peril. Like, who wants to be a part of a party where truth is a detriment and a negative? It just is, it's horrible all the way around. You should always be expected and supported in telling the truth.
Well, I agree with you there, Alicia, but I do want to say, even when Dr. Martin Luther King was fighting for the truth, it wasn't a Democratic Republican kind of thing, but he was fighting for truth. He was fighting for justice, and his family was, they burned crosses.
Well, they killed him. So he was assassinated.
Yeah, they killed him.
Some Democrat Republican kind of things.
Like, that is who I want. Like, show me the man that's willing to sacrifice for the righteousness and the justice for this country, and that's the man or woman who gets my vote. That's what you should stand on.
Well, then you should support Mike
Liz
Pence.
Cheney is doing that right now.
Mike Pence ran.
Is doing that right now.
Hold on. Dr. Oleka, Mike Pence ran.
I'm saying you should support Mike Pence and what he did while he was vice president during this particular time and what he's saying now. I'm not saying
Republicans trying to rebrand Mike Pence as a hero I'm just not here for it.
He ran
your job, so now you're a hero. Okay.
I'm sure that there is someone out there who is willing to go down with the ship like Ukraine's president. I'm sure that there's someone here in America that exists that is willing to do that. And that's the person, whether it's a man or a woman, whether they're gay or straight, that's the person that I'd like to give my vote to.
Because I'm for president.
What? What did you say, Dominique?
I said Stacey Abrams for president.
Okay. Well, she got to grab Georgia first. She got to grab her state first. Let's talk about, in a 7-2 decision, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that group health plans can limit outpatient dialysis benefits for end-stage renal disease. How could this impact Black Americans who already experience existing health disparities? Black people make up a large share of those dialysis patients. Dr. Oleka, let's stay with you on this one.
Well, I think this is obviously unfortunate for patients who have this particular issue because they don't get as much benefit as they thought. This was a 7-2 decision, meaning this came from justices who have all types of political opinions on this, which I found to be interesting. But I think the broader question is, what are we doing with our American healthcare system, where you have people who have a disease from which they are dying, and they switch over to the public resource, which does not give them a full cost benefit to help them at least suffer with dignity over the final time of their life. That, I think, is the bigger issue here. Again, the courts respond to what the laws are and what the Constitution says, but Congress has the opportunity to act differently here. There is discretion, so companies can certainly act differently here. And that's what I would like to see different businesses do and Congress act, is to make healthcare more affordable, particularly in these instances when people are looking for dignity at the end of their lives.
All right, we'll be right back and get our other panelists' comment on that question. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I'm Tammi Mack. The Business of Being Black today, political and trending topics. Dominique, how do we feel about the 7-2 decision the United States Supreme Court ruled in getting, limits on outpatient dialysis benefits for end-stage renal disease?
I mean, as we hear the Supreme Court weigh in on everything from the Affordable Care Act to this, I have a simple solution: Medicare for all.
But does that help if these plans?
If we had Medicare, if we had universal health care where everyone in this country had a right to medical care, we would stop seeing these families being bankrupted by medical bills. We would stop seeing unhoused people in the streets dying from medical conditions that are very treatable. And we would stop having these arguments about silly things like pre-existing conditions. And the insurance companies would stop being the biggest gangsters in America.
Ed.
Yeah, I think Dominique just touched it there. I mean, this is a Supreme Court that's going to take its lead from American industry, and where it can protect American industry profits, I think you'll see it act in that way. And that's what you saw here in this case.
All right, Alicia.
Yeah, we keep hearing that this is the greatest country in the world, but it's stories like this. Even if we're the greatest, we are not the most humane. This is absolutely ridiculous. And the end of somebody's life, they should not be stressing out about finances due to healthcare, what bills they may be leaving behind for their loved ones. It is absolutely ridiculous, and they should be ashamed.
Yes, speaking of being ashamed, R. Kelly has been sentenced to 30 years in prison for federal racketeering and sex trafficking charges. R. Kelly used his fame to entrap victims he sexually assaulted. Hardcore fans are upset over the 3-decade-long sentence. How do we feel? One fan tweeted, R. Kelly sentenced to 30 years, but the white woman who had Emmett Till killed, maimed and disfigured is still walking around free? Crooked ass Donald Trump and his henchmen and henchwomen all free? Who said white supremacy was fair? Is justice finally being served, or is 30 years too harsh of a punishment for R. Kelly? One of his survivors, Javante Cunningham, who met R. Kelly when she was 14 years old, is pleased with the sentence and happy to have her voice back after years of people not believing her. So do you think Kelly's sentence will finally get his victims some sort of closure? I had to say on my radio show, we talked about this, and I have to say, I had to keep saying, this ain't that, this ain't that. People keep trying to compare this to some other thing. This is not Donald Trump and his henchmen. This is not Emmett Till and the white men who killed him. This is not that. Those things are unfair as well, but this is not that. Dominique?
Yeah, I mean, I understand, because I get the same thing from my listeners, Tammi Mack, to a degree. I understand that people are angry because there's not equal justice under the law, that Black people do not get the same justice in America as any other people. I get that. But this is not that. I mean, really, it is important that he's been convicted, not just because of the specific crimes, but because so many victims of assault and sexual degradation, molestation, and torture, and all of the things that he did don't get believed. never get their day in court, never get justice. And hopefully it will give them some solace, but not only that, will embolden those who are being abused and assaulted to come forward and seek justice, and hopefully will wake us up to believing our children, not just the women, our children.
Yeah, especially our little girls. It's time out to stop thinking of our little girls as women. They are not women. They are little girls. And we have to protect them. If we gonna keep screaming, protect Black women, it's got to start with the babies. It's got to start with the babies. And no 14-year-old is responsible for a grown man having sex with her in any form or fashion. I don't care how grown you think she look, how big her behind is, how big her breasts are. She ain't have nothing to do with that. It's just how God blessed her body. And so I just get irritated when I hear women talk about little girls as if they're grown women, and they're not. Dr. Oleka, let's hear it.
I mean, I agree with everything that you said. And I think about this in a different personal way now because of what you just said. I have 2 little girls. Now, they're very young. The oldest is a little over 2, so they're not at that stage where people could confuse them for grown women. But that is the concern, that people just seem to brush over what he did. I mean, he sexually assaulted teenage girls. And for some reason, we think because he makes good music and he sings well that this is acceptable. I wonder how these people feel about girls in their lives that are this age and what they'd be willing to accept and promote. And to Dominique's point earlier, if you are a Black man and you sexually assault people, that's not white supremacy that made you do that. So let's not hide behind that, because that does a disservice to people who really don't get justice because of some other means. So I'm with the 2 of you, Dominique and Tammi Mack, 100%.
Ed.
Yeah, look, I mean, OJ and I will disagree on most things, and I think on this one we're lockstep. I too am the father of a daughter, and I remember seeing a study somewhere where, for girls, it's somewhere around the age of 10 or so where they first notice how a man looks at them, particularly their body parts. As a father, you want to protect your child from that, right? Particularly if you've got a predator like R. Kelly that is, and has shown that he's got, a desire to interact with young women. The sentencing on this is right on. It could go higher for my taste. I wouldn't bat an eye at it. I think we as a society do have to find a way to protect women, young girls, particularly as they're developing. Predators like that do need to get locked away.
And I want to just interject that a lot of them are children. We call them young women and teenagers. They are children. Yeah.
I hate that these little girls are being labeled as women or young adults. That they are not. They are not. Alicia.
Seems like he's ready to take his behind in that cell for 3 decades. And he didn't see nothing wrong, but he gonna see it now. His mind should have been telling him no way back with Aaliyah. But now he gonna be bumping and grinding in a cell with Big Bubba. So let's see how it works out for him.
If there's any time to believe he can fly, it should be now, huh?
He gonna wish he could fly up out of there.
Y'all on a roll.
All the people involved, I've heard some people say that all the people involved in this case should also be sentenced. Do you all agree with that?
I do. It's like he had a Ghislaine Maxwell too. So find out who that person is and lock them up too. Because you couldn't do all this by yourself for this long.
What do you think, Dominique?
Well, yeah, I mean, there has to be accountability for enablers, pimps, and accomplices, especially when it comes to child trafficking and being a predator to the most vulnerable people in society. And you know what? I hope that Mr. Kelly gets some help, because clearly he needs it. And I hope he gets some therapy and some rehabilitation during his prison term.
But I have a different stance on that, because I believe we're all responsible. I mean, how many of us watched the tape?
I didn't watch it. Not me.
Didn't see
I
that.
don't know either. But I mean, it's sort of the same thing. You think back to like Joe Paterno and at Penn State football and how he was molesting kids in the shower. You've got the gymnasts. There's enablers almost at every point by not acting. And, if it was obvious to them, they should have acted.
Let's end with some black boy joy. Four-time NBA championship winner Steph Curry is switching things up and hosting this year's Espys Awards. How do we feel about this, Ed?
Oh, I love it. Look, you just won a title, got your fourth, got your NBA finals. Go and get your shine.
All right, Dr. Oleka.
Well, Steph Curry is one of my favorite players. I'm excited to see him host. His personality is a little bit chill, so I wonder how that's going to come across in terms of an Espys show, but I'm looking forward to hearing the champ.
Dominique, we liking this?
First MVP. Why not have his first hosting job? I'm looking forward to it. In fact, I'm going to tune in just to see Steph.
Oh, okay. Alicia, are we liking Steph Curry?
No. And I'm like, who are his agents? Because he got some good reps. Because I look at that man and all I see is wet paint. I don't see a personality. I don't see anything. All these people out here that really can host, and they pick Steph Curry. I'm like, what is it? I know. I don't.
Well, praise God, we see me on the TV with your critique. Lord Jesus, that is the business of being black with Tammi Mack on Fox Soul.